This is one of the best under $500 smartphones on the market. Let's check it out. Dave Taylor here, and I got to admit, the very first couple of generations of Google Pixel phones weren't very good. Took them a while to figure out how to get all that hardware to work well, but by this point, 9 generations in, they are making some solid Android phones, really some of the best phones on the market. And that's what this is. This is the Google Pixel 9a Android smartphone. And right off the bat, you can see that it has a big, beautiful display. It's actually running at 1080 by 2424 pixels, which gives it a pretty darn impressive screen density of 422 pixels per inch. It also can run at both 60 and 120 hertz. It'll just magically switch as it thinks is necessary. Features Gorilla Glass 3, which is not the latest and greatest from Corning, but it's still a solid screen that's going to help you avoid having any cracks or awkward experiences. Although, like every smartphone, I recommend you put it in a case, and there's tons of cases, and a lot of them you can get for under $10, and it's going to help make it stay pristine and work better. Now, the screen also has a brightness. Let me bring up an image, and I have to get to there. So I wanted to just get to an image that has a little more white, but it actually has a really bright screen. I've turned the brightness down a little bit so that it doesn't overwhelm the camera, quite honestly, but it goes somewhere between 1800 and 2700 nits. So it's an 1800 nits screen, which is bright, but if you're in sunlight, it can give you a peak brightness of 2700 nits. Now, back in the old days, you were under 1,000, which meant that if you were in direct sunlight, your screen was a little hard to read. So all of that's really been solved with this. And memory-wise, it is an 8 gig of RAM, and you can get it in 128 gig or 256 gig versions. This is the 128 gig version. And I should mention, this is a loaner from AT&T, so I could check it out and I could share my experience and my thoughts with you. Now, a little further into this review, I have a ton of photos and a ton of video examples, but I do want to talk a little bit more about the specs and features before we get there. So, it has a 5100 milliamp hour battery, and people are finding this battery is fantastic. I will tell you that I can charge this roughly every couple of days. It's really pretty amazing. And in fact, right now at 64%, it's showing me that I still have 1 day and 14 hours of battery life. Now, I'm not stressing it out 24/7. So if I was watching lots of videos or playing lots of games, that would go down. But it is plenty of battery life for you to charge it in the morning and run through midnight without any issues. They say 30 hours. It supports fast charging through its USB-C port, and it also has Qi wireless charging. But one of the things I will say is that the fast charging isn't super fast. For a modern phone, it's still going to take you 90 minutes or longer fast charging to get it fully charged. And that's something probably to do with heat dissipation, but it also might just be lower cost circuitry. I should also mention the back is actually plastic, although the edges are metal. I didn't really notice it at all. And again, if you have it in even the most slim and modest of cases, you'll never be looking at the back anyway. So that's really a strength issue. It is powered by the Google Tensor G4 processor. That's the same one on the Pixel 9 Pro. And so it really, I guess I should say the Pixel 9 and the Pixel 9 Pro. So it is Google's really flagship processor, and it really gives you a lot of the capabilities to run Gemini and other AI features, and this supports all those cool AI photo editing options and such. There's also a Titan M2 chip that manages all of the security, including it has its own built-in VPN, which is pretty nice. There are 3 cameras, Two of them are facing backwards, as is usual. There's a 48 megapixel wide camera, which is f1.7, 82-degree field of view, and up to an 8x zoom, though I didn't find the 8x zoom particularly great. And then the other camera is a 13 megapixel ultra wide, and that's a slightly bit slower at f2.2, but it has a 102-degree field of view. And then on the front, in the hole punch, as they say, and let me see, I'll bring something up so you can see a little better their hole punch there, right by Doctor Who's face. So that gives you a 13 megapixel selfie camera, also at f2.2, with a 96.1 degree field of view. It is IP68 water resistant, so if you are out in the rain and it gets wet, you don't have to have a panic attack, which is good. Ships with Android 15, possibly Android 16, I'm not sure. Google, when it works on Android, the Pixel line tends to get Android features and versions faster than any other phone on the market. So if you're an Android developer, you really should have at least one Pixel phone. But if you just like Android and you don't want all the layers of other stuff, what they call bloatware, love the word. But if you don't want any of that, like the Samsung software or the One UI or any of that sort of stuff from other vendors, Google keeps it clean and simple. So you have some Google apps, but you mostly just have a stock Android, and I really like that. Also features Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3, so not the very latest state-of-the-art, but certainly good enough that you'll be a happy user for the next 5 years or more. Now, before we get into all those photo demos, let me give you a quick tour of the edges. And there's really not much of a tour to give you, because on the right-hand side is power and volume up and down. And on the bottom, you can see that there's a little slot there for the speaker, and there's USB-C, and there's the SIM card tray if you're going to use an actual physical SIM. And then on the back, there are the two cameras and the flash. That's pretty much everything. So obviously what's not there is there's not a 3.5 millimeter jack. I miss having those on phones, but I guess I'm in the minority because all the modern phones are just omitting those on the assumption that, hey, you're going to just use Bluetooth. So I guess you got to use Bluetooth. Also in the box is a USB-C to USB-C charging cable, which I've obviously not touched because I would never be able to wind it back up quite so neatly. And some little bit of get started paperwork and probably some legalese. And on the back is a SIM removal tool. And that's it. It's the whole box. It's all recycled. It's all very eco-friendly, which means it's time to have a look at what this camera can do, because the camera is so much one of the key features of this Pixel 9a. So let's jump in. I'm going to start with photos, and then we're going to get into some video. Let's start out with some landscape photography. This is at 0.5 wide angle, then at 1x, 3x, and 8x. And you can see in this 8x photo that it's getting a little pixelated. It's not quite as crisp as the other shots, but it does give you the chance to see that great blue heron that was hiding in the background of the previous shots. Let's switch to nighttime. So I have an astro photo, which is their nighttime star photography, and I went out in pitch dark about 11 p.m. and this is the photo it took, and it's amazing. It looks like it's just like twilight. It doesn't even look like it was dark, and you can see the little dots of stars. And what's interesting is that the astrophotography, it actually works by taking multiple images and merging them together, but it then produces a little video that's just sort of the sequence of those shots. And then here's another night photograph. And again, there was minimal lighting. The fact that it got this clean is darn impressive. And here's another one. Now let's switch to macro photography. So here's a dandelion. I don't know if this is a normal dandelion. It's probably about 2 or 3 inches across. It's really big. But this was taken with a tripod from a couple of inches away, and then closer, I didn't move the camera, I just kept zooming in. And then this is at the maximum zoom I could work with. And you can see that's pretty amazing. It is really quite crisp for macro photography. And here's a panorama, so you can see where I was taking photos on a bridge. This is a portrait photograph of me using the rear camera. And this is also a portrait photograph of that heron. And finally, here's a selfie portrait. So I stayed in portrait mode, but I switched to the front-facing camera. And it did a pretty decent job. Now let's go into video. So first off, here's our video at 0.5x wide angle. Then 1x. 2.5x. And 5x, and here again, it's only 5x, but there's a little bit more pixelating happening here. And I think that's just because it just can't capture enough data quickly enough. Here's slow motion and time lapse. Let's wrap it up with a couple of selfie videos, starting with one using the rear-facing camera. This is a video I'm filming using the regular camera, and you can see it does a really good job. It would probably benefit from me having an external microphone or having a wireless microphone, even better, but pretty good and pretty good lighting. I'm using the selfie camera here, and it's doing a really nice job with a fairly complex background. That's everything I wanted to show you in terms of its capabilities. It has a lot of AI features, but I didn't want this to be 2 hours long. You can read about them online. It's pretty cool to be able to circle to search and to be able to go into this extraordinarily powerful, really best-in-class photo editing capabilities. You know, so you have that beautiful picture and there's that kid photobombing in the background. Gone. It's really pretty darn amazing. You can actually take a picture of your friends and have it go down to really no one. Everyone's just gone. It's just the way it is. So sort of like a Twilight Zone episode in a camera. So, you know, pretty fun. In terms of actual dimensions, and I just brought up a picture here that you just saw, but in terms of actual dimensions, it's 6.1 inches by 2.9 inches by 0.4 of an inch thick. It is lightweight. Not super lightweight, but there's a lot of electronics inside. And it's really, if you're looking for a phone that you can just buy outright or get at a really killer deal from your carrier, then this is a really smart option to look at, especially if you're already in that Android ecosystem, because this is a great Android phone. It's a great phone anyway, but it's a particularly great Android phone. Now, this is from AT&T. This is my loaner, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how they have things set up. But before I get to the price, I'm going to invite you to subscribe to my channel. Click or tap on that subscribe button. Hit that bell icon for notifications of my new content. And if you found this of value, definitely hit me with that thumbs up. I really appreciate when you do that. Sweet. This, let me go back here. This is the Google Pixel 9a Android smartphone. It comes in Obsidian, or Iris, or Peony, or Porcelain. Unfortunately, AT&T only offers Obsidian, so that's what this color is. I would call this black. They have a fancier name, and it is, through AT&T, $519.99 in the 128 gig configuration. You can check it out at att.com. But I also want to point out they're running a promo as I record this video that's just crazy. You can get it for $299 a month for 36 months, at the end of which you'll own the phone, which means you will have purchased this phone over a long period of time while you're under contract with AT&T for a remarkable $107.64. This is an absolute no-brainer, $107 investment. This is a great Android phone. Now, it's not exactly like you go in with $107 and they just give you the phone. So you obviously have other small print on that contract, but this is true of a lot of carriers. There's a lot of companies doing some interesting promos because this phone is so affordable, and you figure out that they get it for even less. So it gives them a lot of wiggle room to do interesting options and interesting marketing campaigns to try to get you to join them or to switch to this phone or to switch to that carrier. But again, thank you, AT&T. Really appreciate the loan. And this is one of these Pixel phones that honestly, I would just love to keep. Unfortunately, I have to send it back to them, but this is a great Android phone, and it just has a solid set of camera capabilities. And to me, really, I use my smartphone more for photography than I use for phone calls. And I'm probably not alone in that. So that's everything I got. I hope you found this of value. This is definitely a phone worth checking out. Even if you're not in the Android ecosystem, this might just make you convert. But if you are on an Android phone and you really want to have all the best of the modern AI features and really good camera equipment and all of that sort of built into the system at an affordable price, then this is definitely one to check out. That's what I got. Hope to catch you in my next video.